got the fire flow. Shorty getting down, going up the fire pole. Radical, intermittent where we mad cold. I got the bullfrog flow, you a tadpole. Feel the love, feel the rush.
Welcome to someone's favorite movie. My name is Randy. With me is the man they call Tomko. What's up, sir?
Oh, just watching way too much television, trying to get a little bit of sun here and there, and hunkering down. How are things on your end, sir?
Oh, not bad, not bad. I mean, I'm glad you're getting the vitamin D. I would hate to have a frowny Tomko in the world.
Did you see the post I made the other day? I think it was Sunday. It was the first day I decided to actually go out and do a nice brisk walk. I decided, you know what, I'm going to, go 6 miles today. It was the first time I'd been out in the air for any extended period of time for about 2 weeks. I'm, walking. I'm enjoying the sun, loving the feel of the air on my skin. The sky is bright. I'm waving to people as they're passing by. I finally get home. I sit down on the couch for, a little bit of a rest, and I realize that my flies open the entire time.
Yep. I mean, that's why cars were honking. It wasn't that you're waving.
Yes.
I know times are tough, Tomko, but you don't have to go out there trolling for business, you see. You're happily married. I'm sure the Mrs. Tomko would not approve of such behavior.
If by approving of such behavior, do you mean pointing and laughing at me?
Absolutely.
Because that's exactly what she did.
I'm glad. I am glad. You deserve that sort of treatment.
I think I do. Yeah, I have that one coming.
What kind of grown man doesn't know how to check his fly unless you're trying to advertise the whole meat market there?
Well, apparently this kind.
Yeah, I guess.
So how are things on your end?
I'm getting by, trying to get through this quarantine as best as, well, it's not a quarantine. It's not like I'm sick. We've got a stay-at-home order, which was, again, extended here and outside of beautiful Flint, Michigan, USA. And, and now there's curfews now in the counties around us.
I didn't see that. Damn.
Yeah. Cracking
down.
I
heard they were going to start pulling people over for violating the stay-at-home order. Is that going to be more common, you think?
Probably, especially in the places that institute a curfew, I think. Because I've driven by cops that are just sitting there on the way home from the retail paradise that gainfully employs me. And they're just sitting there with nothing to do because, there's not a whole lot of traffic to begin with. So I reckon that if they see somebody and they've been given the order to, pull them over, they're going to do it.
Nice. They're going to attack it like John Belushi attacking a pile of cocaine.
Just whole hog into it.
Yes.
Just close your eyes and go. The other thing, they've completely shut down hardware stores and stuff. You can't buy paints or carpet or anything like that because it's not essential now. So
are they allowing home repair supplies?
Apparently, it's a shady area. Like the people at Menards where we went. Me and my dad went there because he needed emergency paint for God only knows why. And today's the last day you can get it. I mean, this has got to be your number one priority right now, whitewashing the fence. Okay, Tom Sawyer. But anyways, so he asked the guy, he's like, well, can we get wood? And the guy's like, I don't know. You don't know. A lot of people don't know nothing, including the people in charge. They're just doing it. They're just improvising. Best we can.
So have you been watching anything lately to keep your mind and sanity intact?
Oh, I like that. That's a good segue to what are you watching? So what have I been watching? Oh, I don't know. My movie consumption has went down a little bit because I've started playing PlayStation 4 again.
Okay.
I'm a big baseball fan, and obviously there's no season, so I downloaded MLB The Show 2020, and I've been enjoying it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I have been partaking in a little bit of sports observation myself.
Oh, yeah?
This past weekend was WrestleMania.
It sure
Sport
was.
of Kings.
Yeah. What did
you watch
think?
any of it?
Yeah.
I thought it was bizarre without the audience. You really come to understand just what a role the crowd plays. My favorite part was when the wrestlers were coming out and they were trying to pump up the non-existent crowd.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's so ingrained in their routine, they can't help it at this point.
Yeah. And apparently the pre-film segments with The Undertaker and John Cena are either you love it or you hate it. And I'm curious to see what side of the fence you fall down on.
I actually loved them both. So the Undertaker segment was kind of a mini movie, and I was like, I could really dig seeing the Undertaker playing some sort of like biker street enforcer in a series or a lame B movie. As long as it was made exactly like that, I would be all aboard. I mean,
yes, we need to see a long form version of that. I agree.
Yeah. I mean, it was cheesy and campy and cool and violent and intriguing. And, you realize when you're watching something like that, just how doofy professional wrestling is. You're like, complaining about something like that if you're a wrestling fan is the dumbest thing. You're watching a scripted athletic soap opera, basically. And let's face it, cheesier things have happened in professional wrestling. So, I mean, this was good. The John Cena one, I thought was very clever. The way it was self-referential, kind of took the piss out of himself. It was kind of surreal, kind of like an acid trip.
Yeah, I have to say I've never really been a big fan of his. At least not of his persona and character that he's been saddled with for these past 15 years. But this, I enjoyed that he doesn't take himself too seriously, and he was willing to play the part of the fool in order to entertain people.
Yeah, and I actually hope that. Well, what did you think of the Undertaker segment?
I liked it. I thought it was actually. I think it kind of opens the gate as far as what you can do with wrestling now. It gives them a whole new format where they can bring back a lot of people who, let's face it, are past their prime, who can't perform the way that they used to in front of a live crowd. Well, now you can film them and edit around their limitations.
Yeah, this would be the perfect. The icon Sting has wanted a match with the Undertaker for years, and like he's pretty much done career-wise. He got injured in the ring, and the doctor said, "No, stop. You're old, and your neck is not up to it." But this is a good way for him to get that match. And honestly, I thought overall the entire event was pretty damn good, considering it is jarring. It was jarring not having the audience, but I found myself in the first match. About 10 minutes in, I realized that I was into it regardless. I mean, I got taken out of it a few times, but overall, everybody was busting their ass and trying really hard. And I appreciated that. And I do hope like the scripted segments and stuff lead to further innovation and like taking chances.
Yeah, and I don't want to see every match be like that. I don't even want to see every show or pay-per-view be like that, but I could see them bringing it out for like the big four shows, the SummerSlams, the Survivor Series, King of the Ring, WrestleMania, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You do it every time and it loses its appeal, what made it sparkle in the first place. But overall, I thought it was a good event and a lot better than I definitely expected it to be.
Yeah. I think we were all walking into it expecting to be witnessing a train wreck, but I got to give them credit for however many hours it took over the 2 nights that I watched it. I was not bored.
No, not at all. What else have you been watching, Tomko?
A lot of YouTube, actually. I've recently discovered a channel called Filmjoy. They have a series called, I think it's Movies with Mikey.
Okay.
Where you can tell. Have you ever watched Red Letter Media?
No, I don't think so.
They're famous for a character they have called Mr. Plinkett. They had something like a 3-hour review, dissection, and analysis, I suppose you could say, of episode 1. And they're very smart. They know what they're talking about, but they're also really super cynical to the point where it just isn't much fun watching them tear everything down. Filmjoy is taking kind of the same approach, only they're still taking it from the point of view of a fan, somebody who likes the movies, admits that they may or may not have flaws depending on the subject that they're talking about, but it's just a very intelligent presentation of, I suppose you could say, things that we just kind of take for granted. For example, I mean, they did something on The Dark Knight where they were actually, I can't even remember exactly the points that he made, but he made it a pretty convincing argument that the Joker was the hero of The Dark Knight.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a really, really well-written series.
Well, that seems interesting. Maybe I should check that out.
Yes, you should. I highly encourage anybody who has access to YouTube to check it out.
Cool. Anybody that has access to YouTube.
You'd be surprised how many people are still rocking the flip phone, sir.
I suppose. I have been watching James Bond movies because we're at that time of the year where all the Bond films are on the streaming services.
Mm-hmm.
So I started at the beginning. I watched Dr. No and From Russia with Love, and I enjoyed those both.
So, who's your favorite Bond? When you think of James Bond, which actor do you go to in your head?
Always Sean Connery.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
In fact, I did this last year where I started watching him from the beginning, and I got to when Roger Moore took over, and it was just, I couldn't. For whatever reason, I'm like, oh, this is completely different. This is, ugh.
You made it through on Her Majesty's Secret Service and tapped out right when Moore started?
Yeah, well, because after because Sean Connery came back the movie after that because it was so ridiculously bad, and I know how History Unplayed, but I kept hoping that after Roger Moore, Sean Connery would come back, but he didn't, except for that
almost like a bootleg James Bond movie. Yeah,
the one that's not canon but kind of is. Never Say Never Again or something like that.
Yes. Yeah, it was just a weird movie.
Yeah, and Sean Connery in that movie looks to be about, I don't know how old he actually was, but he looks to be about 50-something. And he's flirting with Kim Basinger, who was probably 20-something. That was kind of weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, the other thing I watched recently was The Return of Swamp Thing.
Oh.
Right? Wow. So Swamp Thing is one of those comic book characters that is kind of highly revered among comic book geeks because there was a stellar run that famous comic book writer and also famous misanthrope and also famous comic book hater now, Alan Moore wrote, the man who wrote V for Vendetta as well and The Watchmen. He had a long run with Swamp Thing, which made Swamp Thing kind of edgy and surreal and almost literary. The Return of Swamp Thing, the movie, is nothing like that.
No.
It's the complete opposite of that. It's like they watched a lot of Batman 66 and they were like, you know how we can make Swamp Thing better? Let's camp this shit up. And boy, did they.
You know, I haven't watched that movie since I was probably 11, maybe 12. I didn't really care for it back then because I thought it was just too stupid. But you watch it as an adult, is it any better? I mean, can you enjoy it on a camp level?
Yeah, I didn't completely dislike it. I mean, you know, we watch a lot of garbage on this program. So, and on that basis alone, I realized that it was kind of entertaining. There's some fun parts to it. There's a couple of kids in it for no reason that are trying to take a picture of Swamp Thing. I don't know who those kids were, but they're enjoyable. I could have watched the whole movie for them, starring them. There's a sex scene between Swamp Thing and Heather Locklear, who plays the love interest in the movie. Like the whole love subplot between her and Swamp Thing is the weirdest. She just falls in love with him like instantly. And then there's a sex scene. So the sex scene, he plucks some fucking fruit from his belly. He picks it off himself like some sort of skin tag or something and makes her eat it, which is gross. And then they hold hands and it's all in their head. He's unswamp Thing in her head and they like have all the sex. And
you may be interested to know that that's actually taken directly from the Alan Moore run.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well,
Yeah. He grows these things that resemble yams, and they are highly hallucinogenic. And
oh,
it's basically a way for him to experience intimacy with another person because he's incapable of physical intimacy.
interesting.
Uh,
Come have some of my
however,
sex yams.
it plays out way better on the page than I would imagine it did in the movie, though.
Well, in the movie, he was just like naked and making out with her and stuff. So I don't know. It's definitely an enjoyable B movie, but it's not the best thing ever.
I do remember I had a pretty interesting opening credit sequence.
I'm trying to remember what the
Didn't,
opening.
if I remember right, it had CCR's version of Born in the
Oh
Bayou.
yeah, and it shows.
And it had a bunch of panels from the individual books kind of overlaid on the screen.
Yeah, there was a bunch of interesting panels that I had never seen before. I'm like, oh, that's a lot more. I bet that's going to be more entertaining than this actual movie. And sure enough,
I'm sure it is.
yeah, it was. What else? Oh, I watched something on Tomko's recommendation, a movie called Pieces. Wow.
Yeah. I recently, I'm sure I've talked about it on the show, I started to subscribe to Shudder, and I just decided to pick some kind of random movie. I didn't care what it was. I was going to give it a chance. And all I saw in the header was it was notorious. It had a ballsy ending, and it's a cult classic. So I figured, okay, yeah, sure. Randy, why don't you go ahead and take it from here? How would you describe Pieces?
Pieces is one of those sleazy, grimy 80s slasher movies. You just feel like a dirty creep watching it. And like most of those 80s dirty, sleazy slasher movies, some of the stuff that's filmed doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Very little of what is on that screen makes any sense.
Not really. So it starts off where a young boy who's like 10 probably, he's putting together a nudie puzzle, a picture of a nude woman, and his mom walks in and sees what he's doing and goes apeshit on him because he's not supposed to have that kind of smut, blah, blah, blah. So he leaves the room, comes back with an axe, because everyone has an axe just laying around in their, house in plain view. And he takes the axe and cuts her into pieces. Hence the title of the movie, Pieces. Also, it's a deep movie, so it's got a double meaning because all jigsaw pieces, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you flash forward years and years and years, and there's a killer on the street, and you don't know his identity, but you know it's the boy all grown up because he's still got that jigsaw puzzle. It's all stained in blood.
And his mother's dress from when she was killed.
Yeah,
how he has those, I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah, he's got a box of his mom's memorabilia, which consists of her dead, blood-stained shoes and dress and that puzzle. And it might be around the anniversary of her death or something. I don't know. I can't remember the time frame. But he starts murdering people again, and he starts cutting these beautiful co-eds up into pieces, just stalking in college campus, and collecting pieces of these women, which he's putting together to make a human jigsaw puzzle. So somewhere along the way, there's this college stud, big man on campus, who just beds all the ladies, or at least tries, and he becomes like the hero of the movie. I don't know how that happens, but
the police literally hand him the keys to the investigation, along with a tennis pro.
Yes. So they hire a tennis pro to be undercover for some reason. I didn't understand this. They hired a tennis pro to be an undercover officer at the school and like tutor tennis kids and stuff like that, be their eyes and ears. What is her credentials? I mean, she can play tennis real well. That's why you gave her an honorary badge. I don't get that. So,
Yeah, there's a whole lot of in this movie that I don't understand, like the random Asian man jumping out in
I
an alley,
I knew you were going
attacking
to
the
say
tennis
that.
pro with kung fu, and then just as suddenly as he starts, he passes out, and that's it. Gets on a bike and just speeds away.
I think they were going for a Bruce Lee something. I
I think
don't
they
know.
were.
It was it made no sense whatsoever.
And Bluto from that Popeye movie is in there for no reason,
y-
beating the shit out of the cops.
yeah, Bluto's in it, and you're led to believe that he's the killer because he's the maintenance man, and the chainsaw is a primary weapon in most of these murders.
Oh, that reminds me of one of my favorite exchanges. I think it's after either the second or third murder, the one at the pool.
Yeah,
The head investigator asks a professor. He points to the bloody chainsaw, points to the dismembered body. He's like, based on your experience and your expertise, do you think that this chainsaw could have possibly done this? What do you think?
this is the great police detective that's in charge of the case saying this. I mean, and you're led to believe that professor might be the killer too, but it turns out he's just gay. That's why he's acting so strange. And you're like, oh,
Yes.
wow, that's thank you, 1980s movie.
1980s Spain, Puerto Rican, and American movies on display.
Yeah.
I did a little bit of research on this movie. I was just that enthralled.
Yeah. I will say I did find it interesting. I kept my attention, and the gore was pretty good in it.
Yeah.
But it's worth it for the ending, which I assume that's why you wanted me to watch it, is the ending.
No, I wanted you to experience the entire thing.
Yeah.
Everything about it is batshit crazy. That's just the cherry on the cake, though.
Now,
was the ending.
Now, when you said the Shudder description, did it really say that the movie was ballsy?
It literally said it had a ballsy ending.
Nice. So, spoilers for Pieces. I'll put in a time code if you don't want this spoiled, but spoilers for Pieces. So, at the end of the movie, the killer's found or whatever, and the great private detective cop man, the master cop, leans on a bookshelf, and that's how he finds the Frankenstein corpse, which then falls out of. It was hidden behind
like a painting or something, wasn't it?
It was the bookcase. It was like a fake bookcase, one of those doors that rotate, and the Frankenstein corpse of the woman falls on top of the kid that's been assisting him for whatever reason the whole time, and he starts screaming like a girl or whatever. And then after that, he gets up and they're about to leave, and the cop's like, "Oh, you might be a good cop someday," blah, blah, blah. And the kid goes, "Oh, just a second. Let me grab my coat." He picks up his coat, and all of a sudden, the Frankenstein woman corpse is alive, and it grabs his crotch and squeezes, and you see something pop, and he just screams in agony, and it freezes on his face, and that's the end of the movie. And
yeah,
I watched that ending like 3 times because I was like, "What the what just happened?"
There were a lot of moments in that movie where I was just trying to figure out why, what the hell is going on.
Yeah,
I mean, it was just. I mean, they may as well have called it Confusion, the movie.
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, I would say I could see where a lot of people would like this.
Oh, for
I
sure.
mean, this has a midnight screening vibe to it. I mean, if you like movies such as House 2, The Room, movies like that are just so bad that would be fun to watch with a huge group of like-minded people, I think you could do a hell of a lot worse than Pieces.
I actually like House 2 quite a bit.
A lot of people do.
Yeah. I like the first one as well. That one doesn't have as much, I don't know, love for it, but I like that one too.
Oh, wait a second. I'm thinking Troll 2.
Oh, you should see House 2. It's fun.
I will keep an eye out for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Why don't we move on? Because we also watched something else. And we did this for the holiday season, for Easter coming up. Now, a bit of an explanation, Tomko.
Okay.
So I've known this movie has existed since I was in college. And I always thought, this is back in 1999, I always wanted to have a website where I talked about movies and stuff. But every time I tried to type out HTML or something, I'd get so frustrated. It's kind of like in junior high school when I wanted to play guitar and I couldn't pick it up and jam on Metallica right off the bat, so I just threw it aside.
Okay, yeah.
It was kind of the same deal. I was like, I can't figure this out. But I always thought, I was like, man, if I ever have the chance or the opportunity, I want to talk about this movie around Easter time. That's how deep it got, you know. So this has been like, you made my dreams come true, Tomko, by agreeing to watch this.
I was happy to do this for you, sir.
Oh my gosh. I mean, this might be the dumbest thing we've ever done, to be quite honest.
It's up there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's quite at Tammy and the T-Rex levels, but it's up there.
Oh, well, there's a bit of a difference. Tammy and the T-Rex is fun. This movie is not. Now,
yeah, they were trying to make a legit movie with this.
That's the weirdest thing to me. So, like, everybody knows animal attack movies are a thing, and they can be frightening. Like, ask anyone who's ever been attacked by a dog how they feel about, I don't know, Cujo, that movie. And animal attack movies can be done well. Jaws, anyone?
Yeah.
I mean, they've been a popular staple in horror movies for the longest time. We talked about it.
It's a primal fear.
It is. The fear of getting eaten by something is, you know, that's probably one of the worst ways to go, I would think. I mean, we did our own animal attack movie, kind of. In the archives, Roar, check it out. The most dangerous movie ever made. It's in the archives. This one, though, it's got its own specific type of animal attack, which makes it perfect for Easter. Yeah, that's right. When bunnies attack. Yes.
And I have to admit, I did not know what I was getting into when you said, hey, do you want to watch Night of the Lepus? And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? And then it comes across and it's like, oh, this is special.
Oh, it's definitely special. So it stars Janet Leigh, who everyone knows from the shower scene from Psycho. But also
arguably one of the most famous scenes in film history.
She was also in Little Women, A Touch of Evil, which was an Orson Welles joint. The Manchurian fucking Candidate. She was in that. She was in the original Angels in the Outfield. Like, she's got some cred behind her name. DeForest Kelley, he was Bones, for crying out loud. He's arguably
he is a television and geek culture legend.
Yes. Stuart Whitman, who's in this movie, has an impressive career. I looked up his career. He's probably been in close to 200 movies. Sadly, he just died at the age of 92 a couple weeks ago.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, he was. I didn't even realize it at the time. He was in a movie I watched a few weeks ago called Eaten Alive, which is a Toby Hooper movie.
Oh, Toby Hooper's either really, really good or really, really bad.
Oh, this would be the really, really bad one.
Okay.
But it stars Marilyn Burns from Texas Chainsaw. I think it was the movie he did right after Texas Chainsaw, but I'm not entirely sure. And it also stars a very, very young Robert Englund.
No shit.
Yeah, but it's about this kind of this mountain man that owns a pet crocodile, and he feeds people to the crocodile. That's eaten alive. Anyway,
he's kind of like a 1970s version of Joe Exotic, is what you're saying.
Yes, and I have started watching Tiger King, by the way.
Good.
What the whole time I'm watching this, I'm like, how do people get their lives so out of control like this? How do they end up this weird? Don't they wake up one day and be like, man, I'm an odd shit?
Meth and power are a dangerous, dangerous combination, sir.
Meth and power, indeed. Holy shit.
Yes. But going back to Night of the Lepus and the cast, I can't even remember who it was that played the sheriff. but he looked super, super familiar. And it turns out he has something like 344 credits on IMDb.
Yeah, Rory Calhoun, I think his name was.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I think he was in a lot of westerns. Stuart Whitman was in a lot of war movies. He played a lot of lieutenants and commanders and captains.
And I guess the director of this movie had an extensive career as well, especially in, say, the 50s and 60s, primarily in westerns, which kind of helps explain some of the feel to it. It does kind of look and feel at times like an old, fashioned western, like the pre-Clint Eastwood type of western had that vibe to it.
Yeah. So I will say this about this movie. It's filmed really well.
Shockingly enough, yeah.
I mean, the actors all have some sort of credits behind their name. I'm not sure they're completely in this movie. And I think, honestly, if you had taken out the rabbits and added like a couple of dinosaurs or giant lizards or...
I was going to say, you could have done just about any other animal except for cute little bunny rabbits. Snakes.
Big old snakes. Why not?
Yes.
You could have taken out the bunnies, added whatever animal of your choice, and I think it would have worked. It would have been a much better movie. But the fact that you have a plague of giant carnivorous rabbits just roaming around the land, attacking people, eating people. Now,
did you do any kind of research on this at all? Because I've got questions that I was too lazy to look up.
I did a little bit.
Like, how did they come up with this? Did they just have a whole bunch of stock footage from the infestation that was in New Zealand and Australia and decided to write a movie around it?
No, it was actually based on a book written in 1964, an Australian book about giant mutant rabbits. But I guess, from what I gather, the book was a lot more satirical, which you would expect something like this to be. Again, if they didn't play it straight, and it was like a parody.
If this was a comedy, this is actually a really good premise for like a spoof of science fiction movies.
Yeah. Instead they play it so straight. I can't believe somebody thought this was a great idea. The special effects are god awful, by the way.
Yeah. I would say that they were on par with, I'd say, the television of that era.
Yeah.
Same thing also with the score and especially the editing. The editing, especially in that last third, was just awful.
Mm-hmm.
Where you'd have shots that last maybe a third of a second before cutting away to something else, which would also then last a third of a second.
Yeah. There was at one point during the final battle... The final battle between giant robots in the army. Giant robots, that would have been better. Giant rabbits in the army. There's clearly a man in a rabbit suit, a costume, that clotheslined some of the army guys.
I noticed that.
That's awful, dude. And the giant rabbits are basically, all they did, put together like doll houses and let all these rabbits just hop around and do whatever they wanted. And
for some reason, filmed them in slow motion.
Yeah, in slow motion. Anytime one of the rabbits attacked the people, there would be a bottom-up shot of them, of their big buck teeth, and like they smeared ketchup all over their faces to make it look like blood.
Did they actually use ketchup? Please tell me that they did.
They did, according to Wikipedia. Anyways, they used ketchup.
Oh,
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. At one point, a cop goes to a drive-in theater, stands in front of the theater, puts out his megaphone, and actually says, "Attention, attention, there is a herd of killer rabbits headed in this direction. Please evacuate." And everybody leaves without hesitation. I would have some questions, I would think.
Yeah, and they also recruited regular townsfolk in to help with the battle, which doesn't seem very... I don't know. That just seems like a liability, don't you think?
Yeah, it's so stupid. So the plot is this man named Roy is a scientist at a local college, and he's into nature, and studying insects is his gig. One day, a rancher comes to the college and is looking for a way to get rid of all these rabbits that have been infesting his crops in his area. They're eating everything. And so Elgin Clark, who is played by DeForest Kelley, goes to this Roy guy and says, hey, you got a humane way to get rid of these rabbits? And he's like, well, I'm into bugs, dude, but I'll find a way. So they get a bunch of rabbits to run tests on, whatever. Somehow he comes up with this experimental serum. He injects it into the rabbit, puts it in the cage test. But that one happens to be his daughter Amanda's favorite rabbit. So she switches it out. She pulls that one out, puts it in the control group area, and grabs one from the control group and puts it in the experimental area. And then whines that she wants a rabbit. Dad says, okay. So she, of course, goes for her favorite rabbit with the serum in its veins. And they go to the ranch where all the bunnies are plaguing and just hopping around. And she promptly loses the rabbit. And so the serum, because this guy's apparently an inadvertent genius, causes the rabbit to grow into a giant rabbit and somehow make other giant rabbits like almost instantly.
Yeah, I mean, this entire story, I don't think it even took place over the course of a week, did it?
No, I don't think so. It's like all of a sudden, the one rabbit's 150 pounds. They find a footprint. They have no idea what it's from. They can't figure it out. And then they go to this mine shaft where this Captain Billy lives. His daughter and the rancher's son go to this mine shaft to see this Captain Billy, which seems very sketchy to me. But they go in the mine shaft, and he's being eaten by a giant ravenous bunny. So
now, did they explain how the rabbits went from being herbivores to carnivores?
No, not at all. Why would they?
It's kind of important.
Details. So they go back to the mine shaft, and it's full of these giant rabbits. And so Roy is trying to work with the cops. They go to the cops, and they're checking the situation out, and they're trying to come up with solutions. And I'm like, shouldn't you arrest that man? Because he caused this entire thing. The deaths of several people are on his negligence right now. He did this.
I think that's fair. I think justice needs to be served.
I think so, too. Arrest this man.
Yes. Yes. And, at least bring a lawsuit.
Something, please. I mean, but instead the sheriff's like, oh, that's all right. No problem. We'll take care of these rabbits. I
don't know. Do you want to keep talking about the plot? Because there really isn't a whole lot to go on with this. It's literally science run amok, causing animals to run on further amok. And eventually they all get zapped.
Yeah. After what I just said, basically there's more bad special effects and the rabbits attack more people. And
some truly horrendous gore. And not horrendous in a good way.
No. And then they electrify some train tracks. And for whatever reason, the bunnies are dumb enough to just keep on hopping on the train tracks. And the worst special effects you've ever seen.
Yeah. I can't find it in me to absolutely hate this movie, though. No. I mean, I would put this in the same category as Pieces. It's bad. It is objectively bad, but that doesn't mean that it's not a fun time to watch.
Yeah, it's not awful. Like I said, it is pretty well made. It's just the entire premise is so stupid.
Yeah, there's a reason why it's currently sitting at 8% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Right. Really, all you needed to take out all these rabbits was some like wild veteran of the Korean War that's just got all this PTSD, like some crazed Rambo man, and all you needed was him to unleash on all these rabbits. Because I would have watched that, like Rambo versus a bunch of these rabbits. Just give them a big knife.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah, just give them a big knife and a piece of chicken wire and let them go.
Or send in the air calv.
Right. Actually, now that I think about it, Hollywood, if you're listening, remake this movie with The Rock tomorrow, please. Do it now.
I kind of want to see somebody splice together that helicopter scene from Apocalypse Now with this footage.
I mean, you could probably do that. I don't think anyone else will take that initiative.
I kind of want to see that. If I had any kind of skills at editing, I would totally do that.
One last little bit about this movie. It was originally called Rabbits instead of Night of the Lepus. But MGM changed the title of the film and changed, because rabbit, the scientific name for rabbit is Lepus. And they did that because they wanted, I don't know, they wanted people to see this movie. They wanted the audience to think some menacing creature was in it. They didn't want the audience to know that bunnies were in this movie. And in fact, all the posters for the movie and the trailers featured no rabbits.
Oh man, just imagine how pissed off you'd be in 1972 if you walked into this movie blind.
Yeah. All the press releases called the creatures in the movie mutants, not rabbits.
Oh God.
Yeah, if you see
that would have been a funny thing to see.
Yeah, if you see the movie poster, it's just a bunch of like eyes in darkness. You just see eyes, that's all. And
Please tell me they're pink eyes.
They're not pink eyes, I don't think. Yeah. And yeah, it's really bad. But I mean, why even make this movie? If immediately you're going to bury it and be like, "Oh, we don't want people to think they're rabbits." Why did you okay it to be made in the first place? It makes no sense.
My guess is it was kind of like the point of no return financially, where they had so much money invested in it that they had to try to recoup something.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That's the only thing that I can think of.
Speaking of things that don't make sense, it's time for our featured presentation. By the way, I hope you enjoyed our holiday special there for Night of the Lepus. Please seek it out if you can find it. And let us know what you think.
Yes, I definitely want to hear other people's thoughts on this one.
Yeah. The next movie we're going to talk about is called Stunt Rock. Stunt Rock.
And again, you know what? I had no idea what this was until I hit play. I didn't know if it was a rock that people jumped off of for stunts. I didn't know if it was... I didn't know what it was. I just figured it had something to do with like a boulder.
Oh, okay. I could see that.
I did not know what I was in for on this one.
Well, if you would have seen the movie poster, you would have known that it was a death wish at 120 decibels. What is your favorite movie stunt? Do you have anything that comes to mind when I say that? Because I do.
Oh, you know what? I've never even really thought about it. Why don't you go ahead and talk about yours? Maybe I can come up with something.
My favorite movie stunt of all time is from The Spy Who Loved Me, the James Bond movie. He's being pursued. Bond is being pursued on skis, of course, because it's the 70s. Why not? He's being pursued on skis by a bunch of enemies, secret agent, whatever. Who cares? He's being pursued, and he jumps off this impossibly large cliff. And the way it's filmed is perfect. It's one shot. I mean, you only get one shot at this because there's no CGI, folks. You're doing real stunts here. And it's breathtaking how high this jump is. And then he starts a free fall. And the camera just holds on it the whole time. Because, again, you got one shot. The stuntman's not going to do this again. So he falls for what feels like forever. And then he pulls a cord. And a parachute pops out with the Union Jack on the back. And the fucking James Bond theme song kicks in. And you're like, fuck yeah, this is why I love movies.
All right, I can think of a different stunt. It's nowhere near as spectacular as the one that you just described, but I would go with Hans Gruber falling off of the Nakatomi Plaza.
Oh, okay.
Mainly, not even for the stunt itself, but the story behind it, because Alan Rickman was terrified of heights, but he agreed to go ahead and perform this stunt because it was important for the movie. And the plan was, on 3, we're going to go ahead and drop you. Well, John McTiernan, the director, wanted to have a genuine look of terror on Alan Rickman's face, so they dropped him on 2 without him realizing it ahead of time. And so that's why he has that great expression on his face as he's plunging down. It's because he was genuinely shitting his pants. Well, maybe not genuinely shitting his pants, but metaphorically.
Man, why is everything about that movie the greatest of all time?
I don't know.
That's
But
perfect, though. I love that.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
It's about as perfect an 80s movie, at least, as you can get.
Everyone says it's the best screenplay ever written because there's no fat on it whatsoever.
No.
It
is an amazing movie.
Every little detail comes back around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How would you, after watching this, how would you describe Stunt Rock?
I would describe it as a concert film interspersed with stunt sequences. Except it's not a concert film by any group that you've ever heard of or would want to listen to or watch.
You're not a fan of sorcery, huh?
No.
So this movie stars Grant Page, who was a well-known stuntman in Australia, and it also stars a little-known rock band called Sorcery. And their whole gig, they were like every single like rock and roll Dungeons and Dragons stereotype you can think of. They're Dungeons and Dragons rock. Like if they had a van, it would have a unicorn or a dragon on the side. Like their stage shows have battles between Merlin and the Prince of Darkness.
I would say that they're kind of a cross between the Peter Gabriel era of Genesis and Spinal Tap.
Oh, that's, you know what? The Spinal Tap reference is pretty apt in this case, I would think. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why prog rock didn't really survive the 70s.
Right. So Eli Roth seems to be a big fan of this movie. Like he was seen wearing a Stunt Rock shirt when he was directing Hostel. But also there's one of Sorcery's songs in the Eli Roth movie Knock Knock, which stars Keanu Reeves and the next big thing, Ana de Armas from Knives Out, who's delightful. Have you seen Knives Out?
Yes, it was phenomenal.
Oh, it's so good.
One of the better movies of last year, in fact.
Yes, I'm excited for more of that Benoit Blanc character.
Yes.
I want more of that, please. But Ana de Armas is in this movie and Keanu Reeves, and it's two girls show up at Keanu Reeves' door and knock knock, and they test his fidelity to his wife, and they're impossibly attractive, and it's a horror movie, so I'm sure you know where it goes from there. And also,
well, not only that, it's an Eli Roth movie, so it's going to be very tastefully done.
Yes. And there's also a Sorcery song in the Death Wish remake starring Bruce Willis. So apparently Eli Roth likes that Sorcery.
I didn't even know that they were a real thing. I had to look this up on Wikipedia. I didn't realize that these were real people.
Yeah, they're real people.
When I heard the name of the stunt performer, the stuntman,
yeah,
Grant Page, I thought somebody was like a really, really big Led Zeppelin fan.
Oh,
who
okay.
Made this movie.
Yeah.
Because you got Jimmy Page, obviously he's the guitarist and pretty much the driving force behind Led Zeppelin. And their notorious thuggish manager was named Peter Grant Page. That's what I figured.
Huh. Interesting.
On top of that, if you know Zeppelin, you know that Jimmy Page is into the, dark magic. He filmed a sequence for their concert film, The Song Remains the Same, that was centered around his interest in black magic. I figured that's where the whole sorcery thing came from. But no, these are real fucking people who were actually being serious.
Yeah.
I don't know whether to laugh or just kind of feel bad.
So I found a clip on YouTube from a YouTube channel called Trailers from Hell, in which the filmmaker, I don't know, kind of describes the movie they made or where it came from, I guess. Sir, this is our third Brian Treachard Smith movie. Do you remember that name?
Yeah, the name's very familiar. Remind me again.
Leprechaun 3 and 4.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So he describes And I mean, he's a good speaker. It surprises me he makes the movies that he does, because he's very well thought out. So he described how he came up with the idea for this movie. He said, every filmmaker occasionally gets a wild-ass idea. Normally, there's a development system in place to prevent such an idea from ever reaching the screen. In this instance, the system failed. In December 1977, I was having a shower when an idea came to me. Famous stuntman meets famous rock group. Much stunt and much rock takes place. The kids will go bananas. Eureka! Still wet, I wrote a 6-page outline in half an hour. So,
what's his definition of famous rock group?
Well, I mean, he tried to get Foreigner, and they bowed out. So actually, Sorcery had only done a few stage shows when they were signed to do this movie. They weren't even a full band yet, really. His main motivation, he said, was to put Grant Page into the international eye, because Brian Trenchard Smith was his producer and manager for the first 5 years of Grant Page's career, and he had made him the lead in 4 of his movies. So he thought that, pair Page with an American rock band, and Hollywood might be like, oh, look at this guy, hire him more. So
did that work?
Hire him more? No, not really. He did do a movie in 1981 called Road Games, which I need to track down. It's an Australian horror movie. It's one of Quentin Tarantino's favorites.
Okay.
He plays the lead, like, slasher type in that. But apparently he got an immediate response based on his outline that a deal was made. The only catch was he had to fly to LA immediately, finish the outline, make the film, and do it all in 15 days. And he said, okay. And then you get Stunt Rock.
Now, how much of this was pre-existing footage that they just edited in, I wonder?
The parts where they talk about, they actually reference other movies, and in this, those are real.
Yeah, because I mean, it kind of had the same feel that Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 did, where you can tell that for this project, they filmed very little and were relying on pre-existing footage.
A lot of the stunts that they show were from other movies. I guess we should get into the plot a little bit.
And there's only a little bit of plot.
Yeah. Basically, there's much stunt and there's much rock. And I'm not sure anyone went bananas, but so Grant Page in the movie is a stunt man. He's about to fly to LA to do a new series called Undercover Girl. And when he arrives in LA, his cousin, who's in this new rock band called Sorcery, who they don't do magic tricks, they do actual magic.
No, they do magic tricks.
They do magic tricks.
Cheesy ones at that.
Yeah, they look like every rock stereotype you've ever seen in the 70s, except one of them wears a ski mask the whole time, and their voice is disguised. The ultimate in gender fluidity, I guess. In L.A., he gets hit by a car, a stunt gone wrong, which actually happened in real life. That clip was from a talk show appearance he did in Australia, and I guess it was somewhat notorious. He was supposed to jump completely over the car, and he gets hit by the car and hospitalized.
Wow.
Yeah, so they used that clip, because why wouldn't you? Good stuff. Like, it's already there, why not? In the movie, he gets hospitalized, and then he escapes from the hospital room by climbing down the hospital building. And a reporter that was going to interview him picks him up, and they go to this water tower. And he's very upset. He's got to get there in 15 minutes or he'll lose his job. And so he climbs up the water tower, falls off it, blah, blah, blah. But the reporter's very interested in what he does. And the producer describes stunt people as breakables because no one cares if they get hurt.
I could see that being true, especially in like everything from the 80s on back.
Yeah.
You know, where they really only care about the faces that are on the poster.
Yeah, I feel like that's like the main theme of this. Like, nobody cares about the welfare when it comes to the movie industry.
Mm-hmm.
It's got kind of a skeezy kind of big Hollywood is bad sort of vibe to it.
And I think there's a lot of truth to that, actually.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Especially back in the 70s and 80s, it seemed like the Wild West, like anything would go. The safety of the crew was not as good as getting the best shot possible, I guess.
Well, honestly, not to bring this down too much, I think you can thank John Landis in the Twilight Zone for a lot of that.
Ooh, tell people about that. That one creeps me out still.
Yeah, I only know a little bit about it. I know that he was filming way longer and later than he was supposed to. He was trying to get a couple of shots involving helicopters. I believe it was a helicopter crash.
Yeah.
And, well, he got it, but it ended up killing several people, including the main actor in the segment for that movie, as well as underage children who really weren't supposed to be there.
Yeah.
And it pretty much destroyed his career, which, as big a fan as I am of some of his movies, I think that's the least that should have happened to him, because he was not found guilty for manslaughter or anything. And I think it was that particular thing, probably in combination with a couple of other things, where they really started to take safety very, very seriously.
Yeah. Wasn't it Vic Morrow that?
Yeah.
And the bad thing about that movie is that segment is still in the fucking movie. They didn't.
From what I understand, they used some of the actual footage that was shot that night during the crash.
Yeah, they didn't take it out. They didn't stop the movie from being made. I mean, the only thing, because it had some big name producers on board with it.
Well, it had a very big name director attached to it as well.
Yeah. Steven Spielberg was Kathleen Kennedy.
Exactly.
Steven Spielberg, those are, and John Landis, those are power players.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading a book called Wild and Crazy Guys. It came out last year. It's about comedy in the late 70s, early 80s, and how the movie stars of the 80s came from comedy, really. The biggest stars were comedic stars like Eddie Murphy, John Candy, Bill Murray, Steve Martin. It has an anecdote about Eddie Murphy and John Landis clashing on the set of Coming to America. They did not get along whatsoever, and Eddie Murphy brought up that death, which I thought was very, I don't know, kind of a low blow, but at the same time, it's right there, so.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that was probably his last big movie, John Landis, wasn't it?
I'm sure he did more, but yeah, as far as big movies go, probably. I can't think of anything else, really.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm a fan of a lot of his movies. American Werewolf in London, Animal House, Blues Brothers, great movies, but he fucked up in a way that's kind of hard to get over.
So the rest of the movie is basically the reporter trying to write a story about this crazy stunt guy who, the scene at the end of the movie where he's like the Human Torch and he sets himself on fire and climbs down the side of a cliff. I'm like, you maniac. And that is the one thing about this movie. Some of the stunts are really great in it.
Well, I mean, he did have an interesting line where he said that if he was scared, if he thought that it wasn't going to be safe, he wouldn't be doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's just kind of an interesting study on different points of view.
Yeah, I wrote it down. He said, fear is a funny thing. Whenever you lose respect for it, you can end up very dead.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good phrase.
Yeah. He asked the girl out, the reporter, after she gets a little bit too close to the situation and she can't watch him work anymore. So he asked her out the only way he knows how, by shimmying across a tightrope across from her apartment building and calling her and says, look out the window. Here I am. Go.
Well, in all fairness, they didn't have texting back then.
That's true. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. I mean, that's a lot better than, I don't know, throwing a rock at a window or standing outside a window with a boombox playing Peter Gabriel. I mean, this one really leaves an impact.
Yeah, it did.
At one point, he dangles from that wire from one arm. I was like, I used to work out all the time, and I've been trying to get back there, except it's real fun to be lazy. But even at the height of my muscle strength, I'm pretty sure I couldn't hang by a wire from one arm and be okay with it.
Oh yeah, if I attempted to do any of these stunts, I would be dead.
Yeah.
I have no question of that.
Yeah, he right after that, he says, you have to build confidence in yourself and know how strong your hands are and don't overextend. You have to admit your limitations. And then he hangs from the edge of a building. Like
Casually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing that I can't get over. He didn't have any kind of fear at all.
Yeah. And I guess, you can't have an ego if you're a stunt guy, especially back then. You got to have confidence in your abilities and know what you can and cannot do. Otherwise, yeah, you could end up pretty dead.
Mm-hmm. Now, would you recommend this movie to people?
Oh, I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. I think it's fun to see once. It's not awful, but there's like no plot to it and there's no point to it really. And the sorcery band is just, there's extended scenes of them on stage in their stage show, and it's just like, I'd rather.
It's borderline unwatchable.
Yeah. But all the Grant Page stuff and the stunts and his storyline, I enjoyed quite a bit.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it. I mean, the whole point of this movie is sweet ass stunts.
Yeah.
And they deliver.
Yeah.
But a movie can't be just stunts.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be great if you could kind of split it up into chapters and present it as a YouTube series. I could see that, but as a movie, no.
Oh, let's make this movie better then. Now. Let's call it Adrenaline Hooligan. And
I like the title.
We have stuntmen. And we have Five Finger Death Punch playing in the background.
Okay.
And the star, who would star in this movie?
Bring in the Jackass crew.
Okay. Yes. Excellent. So we're calling it Adrenaline Hooligan. It stars Johnny Knoxville, and boy, does he'll do anything.
Yeah.
He will do anything. So while Five Finger Death Punch is playing their cover of Bad Company, Johnny Knoxville has strapped a rocket to the back of his pants.
Strapped a rocket to a hang glider.
And he is flying across California.
I would watch that as long as it's only like 10 minutes.
Oh. Well, Five Finger Death Punch has more songs, though.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Well, you know what? Just don't pretend that this thing has a plot then.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I like your idea of bringing in the Jackass crew. Did
I tell you that they're going to do a fourth one of those movies?
Yeah, and guess what? It would be a lot better with a rock band playing in the background.
Actually, yeah. Yeah, it would.
Yeah.
Look at the opening sequence of that last movie where they had Judas Priest playing in the background.
See?
That was actually... Okay.
There it is.
Stunt Rock may have been ahead of their time.
Yeah.
Actually, the more I'm thinking about it, the more I think they actually were kind of ahead of their time. Because it is basically the Jackass format put to early 1980s or late 70s film.
Yeah, and he's doing legitimate stunts, not firing a bottle rocket from his asshole.
Oh, I'm not disputing the sweet-ass nature of his stunts.
Right, yeah.
I'm just saying, don't even pretend that these are actual characters. Even better yet, I think the real life story would have been a lot more interesting.
Well, I guess there's actually a documentary called Danger Freaks, and it's just him doing a bunch of stunts like this.
Okay, that would be way, way better and a lot more entertaining than Stunt Rock.
Yeah, I think so. Would you recommend this to people, though, if they can't find Danger Freaks?
Watch it a couple minutes at a time. Skip over the sorcery bullshit and just concentrate on Grant Page. Grant Page is fucking awesome.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right.
Anything else you need to tell the people? Like, for example, where can they get a hold of you?
Well, you can find me every Sunday morning, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, on a little show called Jake and Tom Conquer the World. If you can't tune in right then, don't worry. Those episodes aren't going anywhere. Just subscribe to us on iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, or any of your other favorite podcasters, podcatchers, I should say. If you want to get in touch with us, you can reach out to us on Twitter at The Drunken Dork or on Facebook at Jake and Tom Conquer the Group.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at mretailslave and on a big dumb comedy show called Miserable Retail Slave. We are going to be on a live streaming event to raise money for cancer research May 28th at 7 p.m. Me and my co-host Tommy will be doing a live show, and we want you to bring your donations. Open up those pocketbooks. I know times are tough right now. You might be a little bit unemployed, but just throw $1 or $2 our way. We're trying to help the Epic Film guys reach $10,000. And they found the company to match that, so it would be $20,000 in total, all going to a great cause. Because ain't nobody.
Well, you and I are going to be helping out on that too, aren't we?
No, because I never signed up in time.
Oh, are they closed now?
Yeah.
Pisser.
Urgh. Yeah, I got lazy.
Well, in that case, I'll have to help with my wallet.
That would be great.
Yes.
Yeah. Open up that sweet Tomco Trust Fund and send it our way.
Yeah, now that I'm off on the government teat, I might as well put it to good use.
Yeah, snacking on that government cheese. Coming up, you need to ask your co-host there if he wants to do a Ghost Rider next week.
He does.
Okay.
Get him the movies, and he will gladly do that.
Okay. I'll work on that. So next week,
all right,
we're going to have the Ghost Rider movies. After that, Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia and Straw Dogs. And after that, I guess we have no choice because it was asked about the sleepaway camp movies. Ooh.
Oh, that's going to be an endurance test.
Ooh. So all that's coming up on your favorite movie podcast, someone's favorite. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Say a happy Easter.